"It's loud," a small voice whispers from the corner of the vast, silent boardroom. Finian Finn Hale freezes, mop in hand. His heart stutters. His son, Orion, rarely speaks above a murmur, and almost never on these empty, sterile upper floors. The boy sits cross-legged on the plush carpet, a small island in an ocean of corporate power, but his focus isn't on the notepad in his lap. His wide, serious eyes are fixed on the massive, glowing screen that covers one entire wall. "What's loud, oh?" Finn asks softly, his own voice sounding rough in the vacuum-sealed silence of the 50th floor. He'd had to bring Orion along on his night shift at Stratus Innovations after the babysitter canceled with a fever, a last resort that always set him on edge. "The numbers!" Orion says, pointing a small, steady finger at the digital wall. "That one, it's screaming." Finn follows his son's gaze. To anyone else, it's just a sea of data points, revenue forecasts, and market capitalization figures for a multi-billion-dollar merger. But Finn isn't anyone else. He understands his son's silent language, and on the rare occasion Orion speaks, the words carry immense weight. And as he looks where his son points, his own blood runs cold. Orion isn't just seeing numbers. He's seeing a pattern, a symphony only he can hear, and one of the notes is brutally, deafeningly wrong. A single figure in the asset valuation column for the acquisition target, Ether Core, is inflated. Not by a little, by a margin that would turn a strategic partnership into a corporate drowning. Finn's grip tightens on the handle of his mop. His job is to erase smudges from the floor, not from financial projections. "Stay here, bud," he whispers, a command that's more for his own benefit than his son's. He leaves his mop and bucket by the door and walks toward the whiteboard, his rubber-soled shoes making no sound. He stands before the screen, the light washing over his gray janitor's uniform. 6 years. 6 years he'd spent learning the art of being invisible. He knew the precise angle to hold his head to avoid eye contact. He knew how to time his movements to the rhythm of emptiness, gliding through hallways after the ambition and perfume and power had all gone home. Invisibility had been his shield for 2,190 days. His past life, the one with a tailored suit and a corner office, had taught him that numbers never lie. But people do. People lie for promotions, for bonuses, for survival. He was once the man who caught those lies. He was a forensic accountant, one of the best, until a lie so vast and cleverly constructed had wrapped around his own life, squeezed, and left him with nothing but a shattered reputation and a son to raise alone. He can feel the ghost of his former self rising inside him, screaming, "Fix it. The error is a poison pill. It'll bankrupt them." But the janitor, the survivor, whispers back, "Walk away. It's not your company. It's not your problem. One wrong move and you lose this job. You lose the tiny apartment. You lose everything all over again." He glances back at Orion. His son is watching him, his expression unreadable, but his focus absolute. Orion trusts him. He trusts him to see the broken pattern, to hear the screaming number. Walking away would be a betrayal not just of his own buried integrity, but of the silent, perfect trust his son has in him. His breath catches in his throat. He looks around the empty room. Cameras. Of course there are cameras in the corners, small black domes watching impassively. But they are looking for threats, for thieves, not for a janitor about to commit an act of radical accounting. He makes a decision. It's not a choice, really. It's an inevitability, like gravity. He walks to the sleek, minimalist console that controls the board. His fingers, calloused from pushing carts and wringing mops, hover over the touch screen. He finds the editing tool. A small palette of digital markers appears. He selects red. His hand trembles as he reaches for the board. He can't leave fingerprints. The thought is automatic, a relic from a life spent chasing criminals who always slipped up, who always left a trace. He pulls a clean microfiber cloth from his cart, wraps it around the base of the digital stylus, and approaches the glowing wall. He finds the number, $415 million. It's elegant, confident, and a complete fabrication. With 2 swift, precise strokes, he draws a line through it. Then, beside it, he writes the real number. The one his gut, his experience, and his son's silent gesture all confirm to be true. $350 million, a $65 million lie, now corrected in stark red. The silence that follows is different. It's heavier, charged. He's no longer just a cleaner in this room. He's a participant. He's tampered with the evidence. "Time to go, O," he says, his voice strained. He grabs the stylus again, his heart pounding against his ribs. He erases the line through the wrong number, then erases the wrong number itself, leaving only his correction. It looks bolder now, more defiant, an accusation hanging in the silent air. He practically throws the stylus back on the console, grabs his mop and bucket, and hurries to his son. "Let's roll." Orion stands up without a word, tucking his notepad under his arm. He takes his father's hand, his small fingers wrapping around Finn's index finger. They walk out of the boardroom. Finn's mind racing. He didn't just break a rule, he shattered it. He reached through the glass that separates his world from theirs and left a message. As they wait for the service elevator, the doors to the main elevator bank slide open with a soft chime. Preston Shaw, the head of financial operations, steps out, laughing with 2 other men in expensive suits. Shaw is immaculate, his hair perfectly coiffed, his shoes gleaming. He's talking loudly about a golf game, his voice echoing in the marble lobby. "The caddy was a complete imbecile, cost me the 5th hole," he says, shaking his head in disgust. Finn instinctively shrinks back, pulling Orion with him into the shadows of a large concrete planter. Shaw's eyes sweep the lobby and pass right over them, seeing nothing more than a part of the scenery. He and his colleagues walk toward the exit, their voices fading. The service elevator arrives with a clank. As the doors close, sealing them in the scent of bleach and metal, Finn lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looks down at Orion, who is looking up at him, a flicker of something, pride, understanding, in his deep, quiet eyes. They ride down 50 floors in silence. When they step out into the cool, damp air of the pre-dawn city, Finn looks back up at the Stratos Tower. It's a monolith of dark glass and steel, a silent giant holding its breath. Tomorrow morning, Lyra Caldwell, the company's ruthless, data-obsessed CEO, will walk into that boardroom. She will see his number. She, of all people, will know what it means. Finn feels a tremor of fear, cold and sharp. He had just tried to fix a broken thing, the only way he knew how. He just didn't know if he'd lit a fuse or a candle. Lyra Caldwell doesn't walk. She moves through space with an economy that borders on predatory. At 6:15 a.m., the Stratos Tower is her private kingdom, a silent, vertical landscape of glass and steel. She trusts the silence. She trusts the cool, filtered air. Most of all, she trusts the numbers, the pure, clean, irrefutable data that built her empire. People are messy, emotional, and prone to error. Data is truth. Her routine is a religion. Black coffee, no sugar. A brisk walk through the silent 49th floor executive wing. Then, the 50th floor boardroom, where she reviews the day's critical projections alone before the noise of other people's opinions can contaminate the clarity. She enters the boardroom and her eyes immediately snap to the digital whiteboard. Everything stops. Her mind, a finely tuned processor, flags the anomaly in a nanosecond. It's not the data itself. It's a single number, glowing in a shade of red that doesn't match the company's approved color palette. It's an intrusion, a foreign body in the bloodstream of her company. Her jaw tightens. She strides to the board, her heels making sharp, angry clicks on the polished concrete floor. She sees the corrected figure for the Ether Core valuation, $350 million. She runs the calculation in her head, a complex algorithm of market volatility, debt-to-asset ratios, and projected growth that she knows better than her own heartbeat. The number is right. Not just right, it's brilliant. It accounts for a subtle weakness in EtherCore's Q3 earnings report that her own team of analysts, with their Ivy League degrees and six-figure salaries, had completely missed. The correction didn't just prevent a bad investment, it averted a $65 million catastrophe. This makes it worse. An act of vandalism would be simple. This is an act of silent, anonymous genius. It's a whisper in a soundproof room. And Lyra Caldwell does not tolerate whispers she cannot identify. She taps the intercom on the console. "Security, my office, now." 2 minutes later, her head of security, a stoic man named Ferrer, stands before her. He's followed by a flustered-looking Preston Shaw, who she also summoned. Shaw, her head of financial operations, looks rumpled, like he was forced to put on his ambition before he'd had his coffee. "Someone altered the EtherCore projection," Lyra says, her voice devoid of emotion. She gestures to the board. Preston squints at it. "A glitch, probably. I'll have IT run a diagnostic. These boards are notoriously finicky." "It is not a glitch." Lyra cuts him off. "The change is correct. It saved us $65 million. Who made it?" Preston blinks, thrown. I don't know. The file was locked at 10 p.m. last night. Only my senior analysts and I have access." "Ferrer," Lyra says, turning to the security chief. "Pull all footage from this room, midnight until I arrived." They watch the footage on Lyra's desktop. The screen shows hours of silence, the ghostly glow of the whiteboard the only movement. Then, just after 2 a.m., the door opens. A janitor, pushing a mop bucket. He's followed by a small, quiet boy. Preston scoffs. "For God's sake, it's the cleaning crew. Probably leaned on the console by mistake." But Lyra is silent, leaning closer. They watch as the janitor, Finn, walks to the board. They see him wrap a cloth around the stylus. They see him make the change with a steady, certain hand. It is not an accident. It is an execution. Preston's face flushes with anger. "That's it. He's fired. That is willful destruction of company property. Gross insubordination. I'll have him escorted from the building myself." "No," Lyra says, her eyes still glued to the screen. She watches the janitor erase the old number, leaving his correction standing alone like a flag planted on conquered territory. She watches him leave with his son. He doesn't look back. "What do you mean, no?" Preston sputters. "Lyra, he's a janitor who drew on your whiteboard." "He's a janitor who understands forensic accounting better than your entire department," she retorts, finally looking at him. Her eyes are like chips of ice. "Find out who he is. I want him on this floor. In 1 hour." The morning sunlight that filters into Finn's tiny apartment feels accusatory. He didn't sleep. Every creak of the building, every siren in the distance, sounded like the prelude to his termination. He moves through the motions of making breakfast for Orion, his hands feeling clumsy and disconnected. The apartment is small and cluttered with life. Orion's intricate drawings of star systems and geometric patterns are taped to every available surface, a universe created on a budget of crayons and imagination. He packs Orion's lunch, a sandwich cut into a perfect square, just how he likes it, and thinks about the number on the board. The risk he took feels both insane and completely necessary. He looks at his son, who is meticulously lining up his toast crusts into a herringbone pattern on his plate. He did it for him, to show him that you don't stay silent when you see something wrong, even if the world wants you to. It was a lesson Finn himself was still struggling to relearn. His phone buzzes on the counter, the sound like an electric shock. The caller ID is a generic number from the Stratos Innovations main line. This is it. The Axe. He takes a deep breath and answers, his voice steady. "This is Finn Hale." "Mr. Hale," a crisp, professional voice says. "This is Alana from Human Resources. You are requested to report to the 50th floor immediately. Ms. Caldwell will see you." Finn's stomach plummets. Not a phone call to fire him. Not a summons to a dingy HR office in the basement, the 50th floor. Lyra Caldwell's inner sanctum. This was worse. This was an execution, not a termination. Understood, he manages to say. I'll be there as soon as I drop my son at school. You will be here in 1 hour, Mr. Hale. Your son is permitted to wait in the 49th floor reception area, the voice replies, leaving no room for argument. The line clicks dead. Finn stares at the phone. He's no longer a ghost in the machine. He's a bug in the code, a feature that wasn't supposed to exist, and he was about to be personally debugged by the system's architect. He looks at Orion, who is watching him with those knowing eyes. Change of plans, bud, Finn says, forcing a smile that feels like cracking plaster. Looks like you and I are going back to work. The ride up in the main elevator is unnervingly smooth. It's a silent ascent through the heart of the tower, a world away from the rattling, grease-smelling service lift Finn usually takes. He stands in the corner of the polished steel box, hyper-aware of his worn work boots on the pristine marble floor. Orion, oblivious to the tension radiating from his father, traces the faint reflection of the lights on the wall with his fingertip, creating a temporary, swirling galaxy. For him, it's just another pattern. For Finn, it feels like a cage slowly rising towards the executioner. The doors open onto the 49th floor. The air is different here, still cool, and smelling faintly of expensive leather and ambition. A woman with a sleek black dress and an efficient smile approaches them. Alana, the voice from the phone. Mr. Hale, she says, her eyes flicking from Finn's uniform to Orion and back again, a micro-expression of confusion she quickly masks. Right this way. Ms. Caldwell is expecting you. She leads them to a small, comfortable reception area with low-slung white chairs. Your son can wait here. We have drawing supplies and a tablet if he likes. Finn kneels down. I'll be back in a little bit, oh. Be good. Orion nods, already reaching for the offered sketchbook and a set of colored pencils, his focus shifting instantly. He doesn't need to be told. He lives in a world of his own creation, safe and orderly. Alana gestures down a short, glass-walled corridor. Ms. Caldwell's office is on the next floor up. The private staircase is just here. As Finn follows her, he passes a series of executive offices, their glass walls offering glimpses of people working with quiet intensity. In one of them, he sees Preston Shaw. The man is standing by his window, a phone pressed to his ear, but he's not looking at the view. He's looking directly at Finn. His expression is one of pure, undiluted contempt. It's a look that says, "You don't belong here, and I will burn you for it." Finn meets his gaze for a second before looking away, a cold knot tightening in his gut. He is led to a heavy oak door. Alana knocks once, then opens it. Mr. Hale is here, Miss Caldwell. Finn steps inside. The office is vast and minimalist, dominated by a floor-to-ceiling window that frames the city like a living work of art. There is no clutter, no personal photos, just a sleek black desk, 2 chairs, and Lyra Caldwell. She stands by the window, her back to him, a silhouette against the morning sky. "Close the door," she says, without turning around. Finn does, the soft click of the latch echoing in the silence. She turns slowly. Her eyes are sharp, analytical, like she's scanning a line of code for a fatal flaw. "You changed the numbers on my whiteboard. It's not a question. It's a statement of fact." "They were wrong," Finn replies, his voice coming out steadier than he expected. "I'm aware," she says, walking towards him. She stops a few feet away, her posture radiating an unnerving stillness. "My team of analysts, who I pay a collective $3 million a year, didn't see it. How did you?" Finn thinks of Orion, of the screaming number. "The pattern was off," he says simply. "The debt-to-asset ratio didn't account for their off-balance sheet liabilities, a common trick for inflating a company's value pre-acquisition." Lyra's eyebrow raises a fraction of an inch. It's the only sign of surprise. "A common trick? You sound like an accountant." "I mop floors," Finn says, his gaze unwavering. He will not offer her his past. It's the only thing that still belongs entirely to him. Yes, you do, she says, her tone unreadable. She circles him once, like a shark inspecting a strange new creature in its waters. You have a son? Yes. He was with you. Did he point it out? Finn hesitates. Protecting Orion is his primary function. My son is observant, but the analysis was mine. Lyra stops in front of him. You broke protocol. You trespassed on a secure floor with a civilian. You altered confidential financial data. By all rights, I should not only fire you, but have you charged. Preston Shaw is already drawing up the paperwork. Finn's hands clench into fists at his sides. He says nothing. But firing you would be illogical, she continues, as if talking to herself. You possess a skill my company is currently lacking, and I do not tolerate waste. She walks to her desk and picks up a slim, silver tablet. She holds it out. Finn doesn't move. Take it, she commands. He takes the tablet. The metal is cool and heavy. I own a subsidiary, Lyra says, her voice becoming sharp and focused. Viridia Labs, a biotech firm. It's bleeding $2 million a month. My team, including Mr. Shaw, tells me it's market dynamics, a downturn in the sector. I say they're blind. She locks her eyes on his. On that tablet is the raw, unfiltered financial data for the last 24 months. Find out why I'm losing money. Finn stares at her. You want me to audit your company? I want you to find the truth, she corrects him. You have 48 hours. The door to the office swings open and Preston Shaw strides in, his face a mask of professional concern. Lyra, forgive me for interrupting, but I just saw the access request. You cannot be serious about giving him this data. It's our most sensitive information. He's a janitor. He hasn't been vetted. He hasn't signed the proper NDAs. Lyra doesn't even look at him. Her gaze remains fixed on Finn. Mr. Hale is working under a temporary contract as a financial analyst, effective immediately. Pay grade to be determined. He has my personal clearance. Alana is drawing up the necessary paperwork as we speak. She finally turns her head slightly. Do you have a problem with that, Preston? The dismissal is so cold, so absolute, that a flush of red creeps up Preston's neck. No, he says through gritted teeth. Of course not. I'm just concerned about procedure. Then let me worry about procedure, Lyra says, dismissing him with a wave. You may go. Preston glares at Finn, his eyes burning with a mixture of fury and humiliation, before turning on his heel and leaving, closing the door a little too hard behind him. Lyra turns back to Finn. 48 hours, don't disappoint me. Finn looks down at the tablet in his hands. It feels like both a lifeline and a bomb. He has an impossible task, an enemy watching his every move, and a billionaire CEO who looks at him like an interesting but potentially disposable tool. He has been seen. He has been given a chance. But it's a chance that could destroy him more completely than his first fall ever did. When Finn steps out of Lyra Caldwell's office, the air seems to have changed. He walks back towards the staircase, the tablet held tightly in his hand. The few executives moving through the corridor now glance at him with undisguised curiosity. He's no longer invisible. He's an anomaly, a janitor summoned to the summit, and whispers follow him like a shadow. Alana is waiting for him on the 49th floor. Her professional smile is still in place, but there's a new respect in her eyes. Mr. Hale, she says, handing him a thin folder and a plastic ID card. This is your temporary access badge. It will get you into the East Wing offices, and these are the standard NDAs. Please sign them. She gestures to a small glass-walled office wedged between two larger ones. It's empty save for a desk, a chair, and a terminal. You can work in here for now. A fishbowl, a place where he can be watched. Thank you, Finn says, signing the documents with a steady hand. He walks to the reception area where Orion sits, completely absorbed in his drawing. He's created a fantastically complex maze, full of spirals and dead ends, a single path winding through the chaos. It looks impossible to solve. Ready to move, bud? Finn asks. Orion looks up, nods, and carefully closes his sketchbook. Finn leads him to the small office. It's sterile and impersonal, the opposite of their cluttered, lived-in apartment. He sets Orion up in the corner with his sketchbook and a bottle of water. "I have some work to do, O. It might be boring." Orion just gives him a small, reassuring smile and starts a new drawing. For a boy who rarely speaks, he has 1,000 ways of saying, "I know. You've got this." Finn sits at the desk, plugs in the tablet, and takes a deep breath. The Stratos network recognizes his new credentials. A single folder appears on the screen. Viridia Labs Audit. He clicks it. It's like coming home. The numbers flood the screen, and the anxious janitor recedes. The forensic accountant takes over. His mind shifts into a state of hyper-focus, a place he hasn't been in 6 years. He's not just seeing spreadsheets, he's seeing a living, breathing organism. He can feel its pulse, sense where the blood flow is weak, where the arteries are clogged. His eyes scan past the top-line figures, the ones designed to be polished and presented in boardrooms. He goes deeper into the raw metadata of the expense reports, the timestamps on the vendor invoices, the routing numbers for the wire transfers. This is where the real story lives. The details people think are too small to matter. Hours melt away. He maps the flow of money, charting every transaction from Viridia Labs over the past 2 years. A pattern begins to emerge. Not a neat, elegant one like Orion draws, but a messy, jagged one. A pattern of deliberate obfuscation. He finds the first thread. An invoice from a company called Apex Supply Solutions. It's for lab equipment. The amount is high, but not high enough to trigger an automatic audit flag. It's just one of dozens of vendors, but something about it feels wrong. He cross-references the invoice date with Viridia's inventory logs. The equipment was never received. He runs a search on Apex Supply Solutions. The company has a slick website, but it's a facade. The corporate registration is less than a year old. The address is a P.O. box in Delaware. The director is a name he's never heard of. It's a shell corporation, classic. Just as he's about to dig deeper, a shadow falls over his desk. "Playing with the big boy toys, Hale?" Finn looks up. Preston Shaw is standing in the doorway, a smug smirk on his face. "I see Lyra gave you a fishbowl to swim in. Don't break anything." Finn doesn't reply. He just stares at Preston until the man's smirk falters. Preston scoffs and walks away. But Finn feels a chill. This isn't a friendly warning. It's a threat. He turns back to the tablet and tries to pull the full vendor payment history for Apex. Access denied. He tries again. Access denied. He tries to access the server logs for the accounting software. Corrupted file. Finn leans back, his jaw tight. It's not a coincidence. Preston is locking him out, cutting off his access one file at a time, trying to run out the 48-hour clock. He's trying to make Finn fail, but he's also confirming Finn's suspicion. Preston is hiding something. Finn needs another way in. If the front door's locked, he'll find a window. He bypasses the main accounting files and goes into the server's raw communication logs, a place no one but an IT admin would ever look. He searches for any data packets associated with Apex Supply Solutions. He finds it, a string of encrypted data transfers. He spends the next hour writing a simple script to decrypt them. The code runs, and a list of transactions appears on the screen. Small, recurring payments from Viridia Labs to Apex, disguised as everything from consulting fees to janitorial services. And then he sees it. The architecture of the fraud. The way the money is moved through 3 different shell corporations, each one washing the funds before passing them to the next. The specific way the invoices are coded to bypass automated checks. The layered, intricate deceit. Finn's breath catches in his chest. His blood runs cold. It's identical. It's the exact same methodology, the same digital fingerprint as the fraud he was accused of 6 years ago. The one that destroyed his career, his reputation, his life. The one orchestrated by a shadowy figure his own investigation never managed to unmask. He stares at the screen, the glowing numbers blurring. He's not looking at Viridia Labs' accounts anymore. He's looking at the ghost that has haunted his every waking moment for 2,192 days. The man who framed him, who let him take the fall, is here, in this building, working just 50 feet away. It was never just about a broken pattern on a whiteboard. It was never just about a new job. It's about him. It has always been about him. It wasn't just a pattern of fraud. It was a signature. And Finn knew the author. For a long moment, Finn can't breathe. The air in the sterile office feels thick and suffocating. The glowing numbers on the tablet morph into taunting ghosts from his past. 6 years of shame, of looking over his shoulder, of scraping by in the shadows. It all coalesces into a single, blinding point of clarity. Preston Shaw. A wave of pure cold fury washes over him, so intense it makes his hands shake. He wants to stand up, walk into Preston's office, and slam the tablet down on his desk. He wants to see the man's smug face crumble as he realizes he's been caught. But he quashes the impulse just as quickly as it arises. That's what Preston would expect. An emotional outburst. A wild accusation from the janitor. It would be Finn's word against the head of financial operations. He'd be branded a lunatic, a disgruntled employee with a conspiracy theory, and escorted out of the building before he could say the word fraud. His 48 hours of grace would be over. He forces himself to take a slow, steadying breath. Emotion is a liability. He learned that the hard way. He needs proof. Not just proof of the fraud. He already has the beginnings of that, but irrefutable proof that links it directly to Preston. A similar method isn't enough. He needs a smoking gun. He looks over at Orion. His son is now drawing a complex knot, a tangle of lines so intricate it looks like a living thing. But Finn knows that somewhere in that knot is a single, continuous thread. If he can find the end of it and pull, the whole thing will unravel. His strategy has to change. Preston is already locking down the financial data, anticipating his every move. Chasing those files is a waste of precious time. He needs to come at this from a different angle. Fraud isn't just about numbers. It's about people, communication, access. He needs to see the human element. Keycard access logs for the Viridia Labs facility. Email archives, meeting schedules. Who was talking to whom? Who was in the building when they shouldn't have been? His temporary analyst credentials won't get him into those systems. He needs help. He thinks about going to Lyra, but dismisses the thought. She trusts Data. But this story, a 6-year-old vendetta against the man she trusts with her finances, is too personal, too unbelievable without overwhelming evidence. He needs to deliver what she asked for first. A clean, impersonal audit of Viridia Labs. Then, and only then, can he present the rest. He needs an ally. Someone on the inside, but outside of Preston's sphere of influence. He thinks of Alana in HR. She works for the system, but she doesn't seem to be owned by it. She saw Lyra back him. She knows he's on a mission for the CEO. It's a risk, but it's the only one he's got. He stands up and walks out of his glass cage. He finds Alana at her desk, efficiently coordinating schedules. "Alana," he says quietly. She looks up, a little surprised. "Mr. Hale, is everything all right?" "I've hit a firewall, literally," he says, keeping his tone professional. "I'm trying to cross-reference some of Viridia's financial records with their operational logs, but my access is firewalled. Ms. Caldwell wants this done by tomorrow, and I think the discrepancy I'm looking for isn't just in the numbers. I need to see the server logs." Alana frowns, tapping her pen on her desk. "All of Viridia's IT runs through Preston's department. He'd have to grant you that access." "He won't," Finn says simply. She meets his gaze, and a flicker of understanding passes between them. She knows about the friction. Everyone on the 49th and 50th floors knows. She hesitates, glancing around the open-plan office. Then she leans forward slightly. "Look, the departmental IT admin won't help you without Preston's sign-off. she says in a low voice. But the central system archives, the backups of everything. They're managed by the infrastructure team. They don't report to operations. They report directly to corporate. Their main server hub is in the sub-basement. Who do I talk to? Finn asks, his heart starting to beat a little faster. His name is Hector, she says. Hector Ramirez. He's been here for 20 years, knows where every digital body is buried. Tell him Lyra needs a ghost trace on the Viridia servers. He'll know what that means. Thank you, Alana, Finn says, the words carrying more weight than she can possibly know. Just, she says, trailing off. Be careful, Mr. Hale. You're not the first person to get on the wrong side of Preston Shaw. Finn nods grimly. I'm beginning to realize that. He walks back to his office. A new plan is forming, a new path through the maze. To catch the man on the 50th floor, he has to go back to the world he knows best, the basement. He looks at Orion, who has just found the end of the thread in his drawing and is beginning to pull it, a triumphant smile on his face. Finn grabs his new access card. It's time to go hunting. The service elevator groans its way down into the belly of the Stratos Tower. The scent of polished marble and filtered air gives way to the familiar smell of ozone, dust, and overworked machinery. This is Finn's world. For 6 years, these lower levels were his domain. A concrete labyrinth he knew better than the executives knew their own stock portfolios. He feels a strange sense of calm returning. Up there, he's an imposter. Down here, he knows the territory. The sub-basement is a different universe entirely. A low-ceiling cavern of humming server racks, their blinking green and amber lights reflecting off a polished concrete floor. Thick black and yellow cables snake across the ceiling like metallic vines, feeding the digital brain of the entire building. It's loud, but it's a steady, rhythmic hum. A sound of pure function, not the screaming dissonance of Preston's fraudulent numbers. He finds Hector's workstation tucked in a far corner, a small island of organized chaos amidst the roaring machines. 3 monitors glow with scrolling lines of code and network diagrams. Empty coffee mugs and schematics for obsolete hardware litter the desk. And sitting in the center of it all is a man in his late 50s, wearing a faded t-shirt for a band Finn doesn't recognize. He has a wiry gray ponytail and the weary, cynical eyes of a man who has seen too many systems fail and too many arrogant executives rise and fall. He doesn't look up as Finn approaches. "Lost suit?" he asks, his voice a low grumble. His eyes flick to the temporary analyst badge clipped to Finn's uniform. The money is 52 floors that way. Finn stops in front of the desk. "Are you Hector Ramirez?" "Depends who's asking." Finn takes a breath. "My name is Finn Hale. I'm here on behalf of Lyra Caldwell. She needs a ghost trace on the Viridia servers." Hector's fingers stop typing. He slowly swivels in his chair and looks Finn up and down for the first time. His gaze is piercing. "A ghost trace. That's a C-level request. Lyra doesn't send janitors to make C-level requests." He gestures at Finn's gray uniform. "My title is temporary. The deadline is not," Finn says, holding his ground. Hector leans back, stroking his chin. He's testing him. "You know where the primary fiber optic conduit for the C-level servers runs, analyst?" It's a trick question. An infrastructure detail that wouldn't be on any public schematic. But Finn isn't an analyst. He's a janitor. He spent 3 nights cleaning up a flooded utility closet in this very sub-basement 2 years ago. "It runs behind the west wall of the incinerator room," Finn says without hesitation. "The official schematics have it running along the north wall, but they're wrong. It was rerouted in 2008 after a coolant leak, and no one ever updated the plans." A slow smile spreads across Hector's face. The cynicism in his eyes recedes, replaced by a flicker of genuine respect. "Well, I'll be damned," he mutters. "An upstairs suit who's actually been downstairs." He swivels back to his monitors. "All right, analyst, you've got my attention. Let's see what kind of ghosts you're hunting." Hector's fingers dance across the keyboard with a speed and grace that betray his gruff exterior. He's a virtuoso in his element, Preston keeps his firewalls tight. Hector explains, not looking up. He thinks if he controls the pipes, he controls the water. But he forgets. I own the reservoir. He bypasses Preston's blocks with a few elegant lines of code. The screen flickers, and suddenly, Finn is looking at the raw, unfiltered soul of Viridia Labs. Keycard access logs, remote login histories, email metadata. What are we looking for? Hector asks. Anything and everything connected to a vendor called Apex Supply Solutions, Finn says, and any anomalous after-hours activity. Hector runs the search. The results scroll by in a blur, and then they find it. There, Hector says, pointing. A pattern. Remote logins to the Viridia accounting system, always between 2 and 4 a.m., always from the same external IP address. Can you trace it? Finn asks, leaning in. Already did. Hector grins. It's routed through 6 different countries, a professor, but the final proxy terminates at a residential address in the city. Rented under a fake name, of course. This is the digital architect, the person actually manipulating the books. But who is feeding them the information? Cross-reference those login times with keycard access at the Viridia facility, Finn says, his pulse quickening. The results appear instantly. And there it is, the thread to unravel the knot. Every single time a remote login occurred, one specific employee was inside the building, accessing the secure records room. Not an accountant, a low-level lab technician. His name is Jensen, Finn breathes, reading the log. Elias Jensen. One more thing, Hector says, his fingers flying again. Let's look at internal communications. He pulls up the email metadata. No content, just the to, from, and timestamps. Nothing direct between Jensen and Shaw. Too smart for that. But look here. He highlights a series of emails. Encrypted data packets, sent from Jensen's work account to a dummy Gmail address. And then, minutes later, identical encrypted packets sent from that same Gmail address directly to Preston Shaw's executive account. It's a firebreak, a layer of separation, but the link is absolute. Finn stares at the screen, his mind racing. Preston isn't just the architect. He has an accomplice, an inside man at the lab. Jensen. He's the one feeding the real data to the remote hacker who then launders the transactions. He has it. The signature, the accomplice, the method. He looks at the clock on the monitor. He has less than 24 hours left. He stands up, a new, urgent energy coursing through him. Hector, can you package all of this for me? Encrypt it. Already done, Hector says, sliding a small, silver flash drive across the desk. Go hunt your ghost, analyst. Finn takes the drive. It feels heavier than the entire Stratos Tower. He doesn't just have the signature anymore. He has a name, and he knows, with chilling certainty, that Elias Jensen is the one person in this entire scheme that Preston Shaw is terrified of. Finn has to get to him, before Preston does. Clutching the small flash drive in his pocket, Finn rides the service elevator up from the building's metallic heart. The drive is a tiny, dense object, but it feels like it weighs 100 pounds. It's the truth, concentrated into a few gigabytes of data. It's his vindication and his dynamite. One wrong move, and it could blow up in his face, taking him with it. He bypasses his fishbowl office and walks to the massive window at the end of the 49th floor corridor, looking out over the city. His mind is racing. He has the proof. He has the link to Preston. The logical next step is to walk into Lyra Caldwell's office, present the data, and watch the fireworks. But his gut holds him back. Preston is a cornered animal, even if he doesn't know it yet. He's been in the Stratos system for years, building alliances, burying secrets. If Finn launches a direct assault, Preston will use every bit of his institutional power to discredit him. He'll paint Finn as an unstable, opportunistic janitor with a grudge. Finn needs more than data. He needs leverage. He needs to understand the weak point in Preston's conspiracy. And that weak point has a name: Reese Jensen. He turns back and walks into his temporary office. Orion is still drawing, oblivious, his head bent in concentration. He's untangled his knot and is now shading in a picture of two planets, linked by a thin, glowing bridge of light. A bridge. That's what Finn needs to build. A bridge of evidence so strong that no one, not even Preston Shaw, can burn it down. He sits at the terminal, the flash drive from Hector in his hand. He needs to know everything about Rhys Jensen. He uses his temporary analyst credentials to log into the company's HR database. He types in the name. Rhys Jensen's file appears. Employee photo. A tired-looking man in his late 30s with worried eyes. He's been a lab technician at Viridia for 5 years. Performance reviews are average. Salary is modest. Nothing stands out. Until Finn looks at his benefits elections. He sees Jensen's dependent, a 6-year-old daughter named Maya. He clicks on the insurance claims history, a string of massive medical bills, most of them denied. Experimental treatments, specialty drugs. The diagnosis code listed is for a rare autoimmune disorder. Finn runs a quick search. The prognosis is poor, and the cost of care is astronomical. Finn leans back, the cold knot in his stomach returning. This is it. This is Preston's hook. Jensen isn't a greedy accomplice. He's a desperate father. Preston didn't offer him wealth. He offered him his daughter's life, paid for with stolen money. It's a cruelty so profound it makes Finn's own anger feel clean and simple by comparison. A sharp rap on the glass wall makes him jump. Lyra Caldwell stands in the doorway, her arms crossed, her expression impatient. The 48-hour clock is almost up. Report, Mr. Hale. My company is bleeding. Have you found the wound? Finn takes a steadying breath. This is the moment. He has to play this perfectly. He can't lead with Preston. He has to lead with the data, just as she would. Yes, he says, turning his monitor so she can see. Viridia Labs isn't failing because of the market. It's being systematically drained by a third party. Approximately $2 million a month, laundered through a series of shell corporations, starting with this one. He points to Apex Supply Solutions. He brings up the data Hector gave him, showing the flow chart of laundered money. It's clean, clinical, and undeniable. Lyra's eyes narrow as she absorbs the information. She processes it with terrifying speed. Her face, already a mask of control, becomes pure steel. She looks from the screen to Finn. Who? She asks, her voice deadly quiet. The fraud is being executed by an external party, Finn explains carefully, choosing his words. But they have an internal accomplice. The point of origin for the data leaks, the man on the inside, is a lab tech at Viridia. His name is Rhys Jensen. He doesn't mention Preston. Not yet. He needs Lyra to see this as a problem within her system, not a personal vendetta. Why? She demands. Why would a lab tech do this? His daughter is critically ill, Finn says, pulling up the anonymized medical claims. She has a rare genetic disorder. The treatments cost more than he makes in a decade. He's not greedy. He's desperate. Someone is exploiting him. Lyra is silent for a full minute, her gaze fixed on the screen. She is processing not just the fraud, but the motive. The human vulnerability at the heart of the digital crime. Finn can see the calculations running behind her eyes. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a symptom of a deeper sickness in her company. Finally, she looks at him, her decision made. Her focus is absolute. Where is Rhys Jensen now? She asks. Finn glances at the clock on the screen. He's at the main Viridia Labs facility, off-site. His shift ends in 1 hour. Lyra nods once, a curt, decisive gesture. She pulls out her phone and sends a text. My car will be downstairs in 5 minutes. She looks at Finn, and for the first time, he feels like she's seeing him not as a janitor or an analyst or an anomaly, but as a partner in the hunt. Good, she says, her voice leaving no room for argument. We're going to pay him a visit. You and I, now. The world tilts on its axis. 1 minute, Finn is a janitor turned analyst in a borrowed office. The next, He's striding through the 49th floor beside the company's billionaire CEO, on his way to confront a criminal. It's surreal. His first thought is of Orion. "Ms. Caldwell," he says, his voice steady. "My son." Lyra doesn't break stride. "Alana will handle it. He'll be safe in my personal office until we get back. She has my authorization." It's an order, a reassurance, and a statement of her absolute power, all in one. Finn nods, grabs his jacket, and follows her to the private elevator. On the way, he stops by Alana's desk. "Change of plans," he says quickly. "Orion needs to stay a bit longer. Ms. Caldwell has approved it." Alana's eyes widen slightly as she sees Lyra waiting by the elevator, but she just nods. "Of course, Mr. Hale. I'll take care of him." The ride down is silent, but the air in the elevator crackles with energy. They step out into the underground parking garage, where a sleek, black sedan with tinted windows waits, its engine purring. A driver in a crisp suit holds the door open. Finn gets in, feeling out of place on the plush leather seats. As the car pulls out into the city traffic, Lyra finally speaks, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. "You knew it was Shaw." "It's not a question." "I suspected," Finn replies carefully. The methodology of the fraud was familiar, but a suspicion isn't data. "So you held back," Lyra states. "I brought you the signal, not the noise," Finn says, echoing a thought he assumes she shares. "An accusation against your head of operations without proof is noise. A provable internal leak is a signal. I followed the signal." A flicker of something, not a smile, but a glint of approval, appears in her eyes. "Good," she says. "Noise is a liability. Shaw has been making a lot of noise lately." The car falls silent again, but a new understanding hangs between them. He isn't just a tool to her anymore. He's a strategist. They arrive at Viridia Labs 20 minutes later. It's a low, modern building in a suburban tech park, clean and anonymous. Lyra instructs her driver to park across the street, with a clear view of the main employee entrance. "We wait," she says. They sit in silence as the minutes tick by. At precisely 5 p.m., a stream of employees begins to exit the building. Finn scans the faces, comparing them to the photo from the HR file. "There," he says quietly. Gray jacket, green backpack. Reese Jensen looks even more tired and beaten down in person. He walks with his shoulders slumped, his gaze fixed on the pavement in front of him as if the weight of his secret is physically pushing him into the ground. As Jensen reaches the edge of the parking lot, Lyra opens her door. "Let's go." They get out and approach him. Jensen looks up as they near, his eyes widening in confusion, then dawning terror as he recognizes Lyra Caldwell. He freezes like a deer in the headlights, his hand tightening on the strap of his backpack. He looks like he's about to bolt. "Mr. Jensen," Lyra says, her voice calm but carrying an authority that stops him in his tracks. "I'm Lyra Caldwell. This is Finn Hale. We need to speak with you." Jensen's face pales. "I don't know what this is about," he stammers. "I think you do," Lyra says. "But just so we're clear, we're here to talk about your daughter, Maya." The name hits him like a physical blow. All the fight goes out of him, replaced by a look of utter despair. His shoulders sag completely. He knows he's caught. "My car," Lyra says, gesturing. "It's private." Inside the close confines of the sedan, the air is thick with tension. Jensen sits hunched, avoiding eye contact. Finn decides to speak, not as an analyst, but as a father. "We know about the medical bills, Reese," he says gently. "We know about the denied claims. We know you're in an impossible situation." That's all it takes. The dam breaks. Reese Jensen crumbles, his face in his hands, his body racked with silent sobs. The relief of being caught is so profound, it's like a release from years of pressure. "He said it was the only way," Jensen whispers, his voice cracking. "He came to me." Shaw. He knew about Maya. He said the company's special executive fund could cover it. All of it. The experimental drugs, everything. No questions asked. He looks up, his eyes pleading. All I had to do was copy some files, sign a few invoices that he flagged. At first, it seemed so small, but it just got deeper. He had me. I was trapped. If I stopped, the funding for Maya would stop. Finn feels a pang of pity for the man. He's a pawn, crushed between an unforgiving medical system and a ruthless predator. Did he make you keep records? Finn asks, his voice soft. Jensen nods miserably. He was paranoid. Didn't trust the hacker he was using. He made me keep a separate ledger, a full record of the real amounts, the transfers, everything. A kill file, he called it. An insurance policy in case his own guy tried to blackmail him. Finn's heart leaps. This is it. The smoking gun. Where is it, Reese? On a flash drive, Jensen says, his voice barely audible. Taped to the back of a picture frame in my apartment. Lyra, who has been listening in cold, assessing silence, leans forward. Her voice is sharp, decisive. Mr. Jensen, your cooperation from this moment forward will determine what happens next, both for you and for your daughter's medical care. Stratus Innovations will assume the full, comprehensive cost of her treatment. In return, you will give us that drive. Hope, fragile and unbelievable, flickers in Jensen's eyes. Yes, he breathes. Anything. Lyra turns her gaze to Finn. The hunt is over. The final piece is within reach. Mr. Hale, your 48 hours are up. You found the wound. Now, you're going to help me perform the surgery. She taps on the glass partition to the driver. Change of destination, she commands. Take us to Mr. Jensen's apartment, now. The car pulls smoothly away from the curb, a silent black vessel carrying the most unlikely of allies. A CEO, a janitor, and a broken man, all united against the shadow that looms over their company. The endgame has begun. Reese Jensen's apartment is small, smelling of antiseptic and simmering worry. The living room is a shrine to a child's long illness, cluttered with a nebulizer, a whiteboard of medication schedules, and colorful drawings, a testament to a hope that is devastatingly expensive. In a trance-like state, Jensen walks to a wall of family photos. He stops at a large frame holding a picture of a smiling, rosy-cheeked girl, clearly taken before her illness. With trembling hands, he takes the frame from the wall, removes the backing, and a small, black flash drive held by tape falls into his palm. He turns and holds it out to Finn, his expression a mixture of terror and profound relief. This is it, he whispers. Everything. Finn takes the drive, feeling the weight of the man's desperate choice. Back in the hushed interior of Lyra's car, the mood is focused. Lyra produces a sleek, encrypted tablet, and Finn inserts the drive. A single password-protected file appears. The password is Maya. Jensen says softly. Finn types it in. The file opens to reveal a meticulous ledger, spreadsheets, scanned invoices with handwritten notes, and transaction logs. It details every dollar siphoned from Viridia Labs. Then Finn finds the most damning part. A series of short, arrogant notes from Preston, time-stamped and attached to specific transactions. Increase margin by 8%. New vendor needed for R&D. Bonus payment for RJ processed. It's more than a smoking gun. It's a signed confession. He documented his own crime, Finn says in disbelief. Arrogance, Lyra says, her voice like flint. He thought he was untouchable. She looks at the data, her face a mask of cold fury. What's our move? I can have security escort him out in handcuffs now. No, Finn says immediately. That's too clean. He'll lie, deny, blame Jensen. He needs to confess himself. He'll never confess, Lyra counters. He will, Finn insists, a plan forming rapidly. If he doesn't know he's confessing, we set a trap. We make him think he's won. Lyra listens, her eyes narrowing. You call an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Finn lays it out. The agenda. finalizing the recommended liquidation of Viridia Labs. His own plan. You tell him I failed. He'll walk in thinking it's his coronation. And you? Lyra asks. I'll be there, Finn says. In my uniform, standing by the wall. The defeated janitor. He needs to see me as a failure. It's theatrical, Lyra says, a grudging respect in her tone. I like it. She pulls out her phone. There's no need to wait. She finds Preston's number and puts it on speaker. Shaw, Preston answers, his voice smooth. Preston, it's Lyra, she says, her tone weary and resigned. The 48 hours are up. Our analyst came up with nothing of substance. Your recommendation to liquidate was correct. Finn can almost hear the smirk on the other end. I understand, Lyra. A complex problem. Indeed, she replies coolly. I'm calling an emergency board meeting for 9 a.m. tomorrow to approve the motion. I want you to lead the presentation. Of course, Preston says, his voice brimming with triumph. I'm happy to put this matter to rest. Good, Lyra says, and hangs up. She turns to Finn, a dangerous glint in her eye. The trap is set. The car speeds through the twilight, back towards the gleaming Stratus Tower. Rhys Jensen is quiet, a man who has just traded one prison for another, but with a glimmer of hope. Finn looks at the drive in his hand, then at the formidable woman beside him. The board meeting was set. Preston Shaw was walking into his own execution. He just thought it was his coronation. The 50th floor boardroom is cold, the air humming with tension. The board members are seated, their faces grim. Lyra Caldwell is at the head of the long obsidian table, a portrait of unnerving calm. Finn stands against the far wall, a mop in hand, his heart hammering against his ribs. He is invisible again, just as planned. Preston Shaw strides in like a conquering hero, radiating smug, triumphant energy. He gives Finn a brief, pitying glance as he passes, the kind one gives to a bug before crushing it. He sets up his laptop and his presentation, titled Viridia Labs, a strategic liquidation, flashes onto the massive screen. He begins his performance, speaking smoothly of unavoidable fiscal realities and prudent paths forward. He presents charts and graphs, all telling a profoundly dishonest story. While there were some alternative theories, Preston says, pausing to look directly at Finn, our deep dive analysis confirmed that external market pressures are the sole cause of Viridia's downturn. Any other conclusion is simply not supported by the facts. He clicks to his final slide, motion to approve liquidation. He looks to Lyra for the final nod, the rubber stamp on his grand deception. The room is silent. Lyra lets the tension stretch until it's almost unbearable. Thank you, Preston, she says at last, her voice dangerously clear. That was a very creative presentation. Preston's smile tightens. Creative? Yes, but before we vote, I believe there's one more data point the board needs to consider. Her gaze lands on Finn. Mr. Hale, if you would. Every head in the room swivels towards Finn. Preston stares, baffled, as Finn calmly places his mop against the wall and walks toward the main boardroom console. Lyra, what is this? Preston demands, his voice losing its smooth edge. What is the janitor doing? Finn says nothing. He reaches the console, pulls the small silver flash drive from his pocket, and inserts it. On the screen, Preston's slide vanishes. It is replaced by a crisp image of the first fraudulent invoice from Apex Supply Solutions. Preston's face drains of all color. What is that? He stammers. That's not my file. There's a technical error. There is no error, Finn says, his voice quiet but echoing in the stunned silence. He clicks to the next slide. Preston's own note appears. Increase margin on this batch by 8%. Click. A bank transfer record. Click. The email metadata linking the scheme directly to Preston's executive account. This is a record of a fraud that has siphoned over $43 million from this company, Finn says, his voice gaining strength. A scheme architected and executed by Mr. Shaw. "Absurd! It's fabricated!" Preston yells, pointing a trembling finger at Finn. "He's working with a disgruntled lab tech to frame me." "Is he, Preston?" Lyra asks coolly. On cue, the boardroom door opens. Reese Jensen walks in, flanked by Hector Ramirez and 2 members of corporate security. The moment Preston sees Jensen, his composure shatters. The final facade of denial crumbles. "You!" he screams, his voice cracking, pointing wildly at Jensen. "It was you! I did it for you, for your worthless sick brat!" He clamps his mouth shut, but it's too late. He has confessed in front of a dozen witnesses. Lyra Caldwell stands slowly, her authority absolute. Her voice is like ice. "Security, escort Mr. Shaw from the building. The authorities are on their way." Preston doesn't resist. He's hollowed out, a puppet with its strings cut, and is led from the room. The board is in a state of shock, looking from the damning evidence on the screen to Finn, the man in the janitor's uniform who has just overthrown a king. Lyra addresses them firmly. "Effective immediately, Mr. Finian Hale will be the new director of our Internal Auditing and Risk Assessment Division. His first task will be to lead the recovery of every cent Mr. Shaw stole." The meeting is over. As the stunned board members file out, Alana quietly opens the door and lets Orion in. The boy runs straight to his father, wrapping his arms around his legs. Finn kneels and holds him close, burying his face in his son's hair. He looks up and sees the mop he left leaning against the wall, a relic from another life. He has his name back. He has his future back. He is no longer invisible. A month later, the 49th floor of the Stratos Tower buzzes with a new kind of energy. The small, glass-walled office that was Finn's fishbowl is now the bustling headquarters for the new division of internal auditing. A team Finn built with people the system had overlooked. They are the company's new immune system. The Viridia Labs case became a legend. Preston Shaw faces a mountain of federal charges, and Stratos is on track to recover nearly all of the stolen funds. Reese Jensen, in exchange for his cooperation, was given immunity and a new role in another state. The Stratos Family Emergency Fund, established by Lyra, now fully covers his daughter Maya's medical treatments, and Orion, Finn's son, is thriving at a specialized academy that understands his unique mind, his gift for seeing the patterns no one else can. Late one afternoon, Lyra appears in the doorway of Finn's new, larger office. There's a comfortable silence between them now, the quiet of a shared, hard-won victory. "I have to ask," Finn says, voicing the question that has lingered for a month. "That first day, why take the risk on me?" Lyra looks out his window at the sprawling city. Her controlled expression softens. "My father was a mechanic," she says quietly. "A genius with engines. He designed a new kind of transmission on greasy napkins in our garage. But he had a thick accent and no education. When he spoke to men in suits, they didn't hear the genius. They just heard a poor man. He died thinking he was a failure." She turns her gaze back to Finn, her eyes filled with a deep, ancient sadness. "I spent my life vowing to never be like them, to never mistake a quiet source for a weak signal. When you told me your son heard a screaming number, I didn't just hear you." She pauses. "I heard my father. And this time, I was in a position to listen." That evening, they stand together on the rooftop garden. Orion is with them, pointing out constellations in the deepening twilight. "That one's Cygnus," he says, tracing the pattern of the swan for Lyra. Lyra isn't looking at a screen or a stock ticker. She's looking at the stars, a genuine, unguarded smile on her lips. She is seeing a pattern she never knew existed. Finn stands beside her, watching his son share his world. He didn't just expose a criminal. He found a place where his son's unique light wasn't a defect, but a gift. He found a leader who learned that the most valuable assets aren't on a balance sheet. Sometimes the most broken systems aren't fixed by a corporate overhaul, but by one person who dares to see a pattern everyone else has ignored. And sometimes, the most important voice in the room is the one that has learned to be quiet, waiting for someone brave enough to truly listen. What hidden talents are waiting to be discovered in your own world? Your story matters. Your voice matters. If our story today moved you or gave you a little hope, please consider subscribing and joining our community. We believe stories can change the world, one listener at a time. Thank you for being here, and until next time, stay kind and never stop looking for the patterns.